Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Brendan Muldowney about his horror film, The Cellar, which is going to be available on Shudder April 15th. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Glad to be here.
You wrote this and you directed it, so naturally you're wearing many hats and you're doing a lot of different things. Does it feel kind of natural? You got the groove when you're working on it, or was it overwhelming at times?
Making a film is always overwhelming. Really, it's the time, on low budgets, you just don't have enough time to do things properly. But in terms of writing and directing, no. I mean, my last film, I didn't write it, but I don't really, it doesn't make much difference. I'm not precious about my writing, and once it's written and we get into it, I'm operating as a director now. So in a way, I'm not having to worry as a writer anymore. No, so I think it's fine.
Absolutely. I'm just curious, the genre of horror, you look at the last 5-7 years, Brendan, has just exploded. It's amazing. The amount of innovation, the amount of amazing content for the horror fans has just been incredible, and it keeps growing and growing. What's it like being a filmmaker in a genre that just is skyrocketing year after year?
I would say that it has been always like that. I just see that there's waves of it, I suppose. Yeah. But it's always there. It doesn't go away. It's been there since I was young. I would say, maybe this is a more obvious horror film that I've made now, but all of my films have been genre films, and they've all gone to the genre film festivals. They've all been, skirting around the horror genre, either with violence or whatever they're dealing with. And what's it like? Well, you know what? It's sort of nice you know what it is? It's like all my last films have been demented, really sort of adult themes and just 18 plus sorts, which would be I think it's R rated in the States, but it was nice to actually make a film for once that was could all the family can go and see it. My 10-year-old daughter always asks me what are your films about, and I go, well, you wait till you're older, so she can't see them. Like my second one is based on a Japanese novel about necrophilia, so we're really talking hardcore stuff. So it was really nice to make a film that is a sort of fun movie that, everyone can go and see it. And so my whole family, from my mother to my daughter, came to see it here in the cinema in Ireland. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite things about this film, Brendan, is I feel like, in my opinion, I'm curious to hear what you think about this, but from what I got from it, it's a little bit of a hybrid, because the film has the traditional kind of tropes of a horror film that I love. It's got the jump scares, it's got a lot of that, but it also has a lot of the psychological game, a lot of the new stuff that we're seeing in horror genres as well. It's a little bit of a mix. What do you think about that? Because there's some traditional horror stuff in this film, but there's a lot of new kind of different things as well in this film, like from the psychological point of view.
I see it really as a sort of, a fun movie that is playing with a lot of horror tropes.
Yeah.
I would say that, yes, there's a few things here that might, where I suppose where science fiction meets horror really is what I'd say. So, but like it's been happening for years. H.P. Lovecraft was doing this, however many years ago. I mean, his versions of demons and creatures were from the universe. They were ancient evils in the universe, in different parts of the universe. And even John Carpenter, had skirted with this in I think it's The Prince of Evil. So yeah, I mean, I suppose the idea of bringing quantum physics and dimensions into, but that's the thing. It's like, I quite consciously at the start didn't want to just repeat the Judeo-Christian sort of tropes that we have and try and just do a little new spin on them, but basically they're the same. Hell in mine is I called it the void in the script, and the demon in ours, without too many spoilers, is just a gatekeeper. There's actually, they mentioned, like, they don't even mention it, but there's this sense that there's a greater ancient evil somewhere, you know, sort of, you know, in control, basically.
Absolutely. Well, you know, and it's to add to that too. It's got the jump scares. I mean, those are never. I feel like those are never going away ever.
So, I mean, look, I wasn't making a subtle film. I was trying to serve what, you know, a sort of popcorn, sort of funfair audience is looking for from a horror film. But having said that, there is times when I am playing with tropes and trying to do something different. And even within jump scares, there's a moment in there that I call the slowest jump scare in the world. When the kid is in the cellar and he picks up his drone.
Yep.
And we just hold on a shot.
Yep.
To me, I kept calling it to everyone, this is the slowest jump scare in the world.
It's so funny you mentioned that. Yeah, that is so true. I just clued in about that. Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's some good stuff. And you had some amazing storytellers to work on this. Alicia and Owen, I think, did just an amazing job on that. They knocked it out of the park. I feel like, you know, you look at those two actors and they've worked on so many amazing horror films before this one as well. I mean, I'm sure you could talk to them about little ideas and everything, but was it kind of just one of those, like, hey, do your thing type thing at times with those two actors?
Oh, look, it's with any actor. Once you cast well, you don't, and then you have your conversations about the character with the actors. Once you get on set, there's very little with good. Yeah. Once you've cast it well with good actors, I mean, at that stage, you really are. You're into finite sort of, you know, just a little bit less there, and you're not into big instructions, because you're really just making sure that everyone knows where they are in the story. Because sometimes you're shooting out of sequence, so that's all you're really doing. You know, they also had 2 weeks because of COVID to quarantine here in Ireland. So they had a lot of time to talk to me in the evenings. Now, I was obviously prepping and doing a lot of different work, but in the evenings, we were all staying in, the actors and myself were staying in these cottages right beside the house we filmed in. So we were like, you know, in the evening time, we'd be able to chat about the characters and stuff or go for a walk. So yeah, it wasn't hard with the two of them. They were brilliant. They were both, you know, really supportive, really on board with it, yeah.
I know it's really cool because both of them have worked on some of my favorite horror films. Like, that's a really cool thing too. Like, when you see the trailer for it, you see they're both in it together. It's like you think of like a lot of the amazing work they've done in the genre for that excites you a little bit. Like, as a horror fan, that excites you because it's not one thing where it's like, oh, we've seen this person in another, like a comedy or anything. It's cool to be like, oh wow, like another Alicia Cuthbert horror movie. Like, it's an exciting feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And she hasn't done one for a while as well. And she's in a different stage of her career now as well. So it's great. It's great that she's still willing to come back and visit the genre, you know?
Film did an amazing run at South by Southwest this year. Now it's going to be dropping on Shudder in North America. Shudder is just kind of one of those things where, you know, I believe there's like 1 million subscribers to Shudder, and it's just unbelievable just to see how many amazing movies of horror on that, and The Cellar is going to be part of that. What's that like for you, knowing that it's dropping on Shudder very soon, Brendan?
It's fantastic because, like, as you say, Shudder are the pinnacle of the horror, if you wanted to call it resurgence, but within the streaming sort of culture, they are where to go for every type of horror. You know, like, there's a spectrum of horror. There's dark transgressive horror, there's art house elevated horror, and then there's the fun fairground with, you know, sort of movies, which I think we're closer to and more part of. But, you know, that's Shudder has it all, and it's, you know, we're sort of honored to be with them. We are also going out, very limited, but we are going out in theaters in the States on the same date as well,
which is amazing. I'm a big fan of, and the movie has this a little bit, some of the dialogues between like Alicia and Owen and everything. Like, I'm a big fan of like the dinner party gone wrong horror genre where people are just having a simple conversation and then it becomes kind of just like a 0 to 100, Brendan, so where it's like, why did she say that? Like, what is going on here? And you just feel uncomfortable, you know what I mean? That's the type of stuff that I feel like is huge for horror now. Like, people are scary. You don't need like the gore or the jump scares. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'd say to you, a lot of my previous movies, I would say, are about people are the horror, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, Yeah, that and so how were you relating that to the Cellar then? You were just you were saying some of the dialogues
Yeah, some
in
of
the
the
Cellar
dialogue's
reminded
just
me.
kind of like,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah, yeah.
why did he say that? And maybe sometimes it doesn't really have to do with kind of the plot or what's happening and anything, but like just I'm always paying attention, maybe more than I should in films, and I'm just like, why did he say that? Or like, what is going on here type thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. I mean, well, look, when you write it, but even more so as you edit it, you really are very aware of all the subtext and
Yeah.
everything that's going on and why and the dynamics between relationships. And you try your best to make it work. And sometimes you have to come up with new things. And ADR is brilliant for that. You'll have off-screen dialogue that starts to help. Because the characters are pulling in different directions for a lot of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Brendan, it was great chatting with you on Popternative about The Cellar. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's going to be available on Shudder on the 15th, and it's going to do a theatrical run, like you said, as well, so they're going to be able to check that out. This has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is writer and director of The Cellar, Brendan Muldowney, and PD Beats, signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.